Blissings! It is an honor to connect with you once again, sending magic and miracles to every moment you are currently experiencing. I'm grateful to be in your field right now, popping up into your reality. In this video, I'm going to be sharing something that I have been becoming increasingly more aware of its importance, and that is crying. Crying. What a magical experience. Like, truly thinking about the act of crying and what is actually occurring, it's magical. Crying is so important in not only the grieving process, but in every single process. So when we go about our lives and we experience things, we are accumulating all things that we experience. So it's kind of like a buildup in our system where, like, we're going about our day, this is happening, this is making us feel a certain way, this is shifting us, this is altering, this is changing our perspective, we're having to navigate this, reorganize because of this. All of these things that are occurring externally start to build up and pile up internally. So literally we accumulate all of our experiences. We are like a walking compilation of everything that has happened to us, everything that we have felt, everything that we have done. So this being said, it's super important to actually process. One way to do this is fasting. Actually not consuming anything physically allows you to kind of process and metabolize what has built up internally. Another way to do it is to cry. So crying is the transferring of emotion, which is energy and motion, throughout your body. It's allowing you to kind of like take apart what has built up and release it. And crying is a full sensed experience where you're physically experiencing it because you're actually crying out of your eyes, you're making these noises. You can actually feel things releasing from your body as you're crying. And then your eyes are literally cleansing yourself with saltwater tears. So it's a physical experience. It's also a mental experience because you're thinking all of these thoughts, all of these things are kind of running through your mind. And if you notice when you're crying, sometimes you don't even fully know why you're crying, but you just are. That is the subconscious at work. Allow it to occur, support it, encourage it. It's also an emotional experience, obviously, because you're feeling things. So these feelings are becoming tangible, so they're becoming physical, and you're releasing them through the act of crying. And it is also a spiritual experience because you're fully opening up and being vulnerable to what it is that you're actually experiencing on every level. So honor your crying. Honor your crying. Truly, it is so important to cry whenever you feel called to cry, because the buildup creates density, and density is not supported in the light body. Your energy and your intuition and everything that you are cannot move through density because density does not support light. It's actually stagnation, and stagnation in the body, stagnation anywhere actually, supports and encourages death. And we don't really got time for that right now. I mean, that'll occur eventually and there's no fear of it, trust me. But as of right now, I'm trying to live and thrive as much as possible. So the more that I can actually keep my energy and my emotions in motion and at a high frequency and vibrating fully, the more alive that I feel. So as a child growing up, I experienced a bunch of traumatic experiences that I allowed to just kind of pile up, build up without actually crying. Where I didn't really cry much as a child, and it was kind of like a thing, like my mom and like my family members and all my friends would be like, oh, Heather's the strongest because she never even cries about anything. Rather than crying, I would logically think about what it is that I'm experiencing, why I'm experiencing it, and then how I can alter my situation so I don't have to experience it again. That was kind of like my defense mechanism, is thinking through the feelings as opposed to just feeling it. So what this did for me, it did allow me to acquire many tools for healing, as well as getting myself out of situations and creating new realities for myself, but it didn't allow me to fully heal on a deep level. So during these times from like 11 to 18 years old, for 7 years, I also had epilepsy, where I would have actual seizures where my eyes would roll to the back of my head, I'd go unconscious, I'd fall to the floor, and I'd literally seize, like my body would vibrate. After my seizures, I'd wake up. Usually people are really out of it and they're like, whoa, what happened? I would wake up feeling like cleansed, revitalized, and kind of like, whoa, I'm cool, like don't worry about it, it was just a seizure. And of course everyone around me is like freaking out. So what I realized through my whole spiritual journey, through my medicine work, as I became more in touch with my intuition and my emotions, that my body was literally going into epileptic shock in order to free these emotions from my body. Because I hadn't allowed my physical self to release emotions through the act of crying, my body was compensating in a different way and literally causing me to have seizures so that I could release this energy from my body. Because truly, holding in emotions is toxic, and not processing things properly is poison for your body. Again, it's stagnation, it's buildup, it's not good for the system. That is not how the body thrives. So literally my body was making the executive decision. It was like, no, we're not keeping these poisonous, toxic emotions in the body that you're not willing to process. So we're going to have a seizure instead. We're going to release it and you're going to feel a lot better afterwards. So I experienced about 7 years of that, and again went through really traumatic things where people are like, they hear one thing that I went through and they're like, that's a movie, there's no way that happened to you. And I'm like, yeah, it did. Like, I don't know how I really got through it, but like I'm here and I'm thriving and I'm shining. So that's how I was able to process everything, was literally through seizures. Now that I have gone through the work and I've done the inner journey, and I've also used plant medicines to kind of like navigate and reorganize my system, I now know how to process my emotions properly, so I actually do not have epilepsy anymore. It also was with the help of using cannabis. And not just on a molecular level did cannabis help me, it also helped me on a mental level, where I now understand why it is that I was having these seizures that were literally defense mechanisms, and they were to help me. So it's been 7 years that I haven't had a seizure, and I've also gotten my brain scanned, and my brain waves literally no longer have any seizure activity, as if I never had seizures before. So I have completely cleared myself from epilepsy. I have no doubt about that. I'm positive. I don't think that I will ever have another seizure again in my life. And if I do, then that'll contain codes for me as well. So I'm open and receptive to whatever occurs in my existence. But I now know that I am orchestrating my emotions in a way to support their release. So it actually took some significant work for me to start crying. It was a little bit difficult at first, and now it still is a little bit difficult. Sometimes I feel something and I'm like, okay, I need to cry. Like, I need to release this from my system. This is not something I'm trying to carry with me. Like, release it, Heather, release it, and I'll try and cry. And sometimes, if there are other things that I'm not addressing in my life or that have built up, then I won't be able to cry until I acknowledge them. Then they allow themselves to actually process through my system, and I'm able to cry. So to me, crying is a superpower tool. It is a mechanism of healing, of processing, releasing, and graduating, like literally moving on from whatever it is I'm experiencing in the moment, and opening up space for whatever new magic is to come my way. So something that has actually helped me cry is to ask myself out loud, like, Heather, what are you feeling? How did that hurt? Where does it hurt? Why does it hurt? What does it remind you of? Why did it come into your life? Why? Why? Like literally just asking yourself questions as to what you're experiencing and what it is that you're feeling will help you kind of understand more, acknowledge it more, and then again, that's when it's allowing itself to be processed through your system. There are also scenarios where you can be crying without fully knowing why, or having fully articulated it mentally through your system, like why you feel this certain way. There are times like that, and those again are magical. Like any second that you feel called to cry, please cry. Like, take it as a gift. Be like, oh, I'm feeling some tears coming, I'm feeling some tears coming. Like, either walk away or watch me cry. Like, doesn't matter where you're at, what you're doing. Also, when you're crying in front of people, you give them permission to do the same. Like, vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability is sexy. It gives people permission to fully be in their soul sovereign self as well and process their emotions. Like, let's be real, we don't want anyone building this shit up inside of them. We don't need that density, we don't need that stagnation. So encourage people to cry. And that's another thing. I've always heard the phrase like, oh, don't cry, like, please don't cry, I can't see you cry, or it hurts me to see you cry. Like, no, please don't ever say that again. Like, when someone's crying, be like, oh, amazing, yes, you got this. Like, hold them and give them support. Hold space for them to continue crying and encourage it. Like, yes, you got this. Yes, release it, let it go, let it hurt, yeah, feel it. Like, that is doing them such a favor as opposed to like trying to restrict them from feeling. Like, it's such an odd concept that ever even existed, where it's like, oh, don't cry. Like, no, like, for sure cry. And yeah, as I'm continuing along this journey, it is getting a lot easier for me to cry, though it has always been just so difficult for me to cry. Like, I literally, as I've like done the inner work and I've really asked myself, like, why is it that I don't cry? It's literally because I think my way out of situations and I think my way out of scenarios, because my human avatar perceives that that is the goal, is to get out of the situation. But no, very recently I've been having lots of visions and lots of things occur to me where it's like, yes, it's important to understand and then also shift yourself so that you're not experiencing things that are going to hurt you or lower your vibration or, in a sense, make you cry. But crying is the healing. You have to feel the wound as deep as it is, fully, in order for you to actually extract all the medicine that is woven within all the things that you're experiencing. That is literally the key. So a few things have happened recently that have actually made me cry on contact. Did you hear that sound? The universe agrees. Where literally I cried the exact second that I'm feeling it. So that is when I'm like, oh yes, that's when I congratulate self. Like, nice job, Heather. You're really in touch. You're really here. You're really present. Where something will trigger me, and as opposed to just like adding to the accumulation of things that I'm experiencing and feeling and holding on to, I'm like, whoa, that triggered me. Whoa, because of my mom. Whoa, that really hurts. And then I cry. And it's not like a like it doesn't have to be like a full-on intense like sobbing cry, but where tears will come out of my eyes, I'll start breathing differently and I'll observe energy is shifting within my body. And it feels so good. It literally feels so good. And seconds later, I'm like, whew, it's like a veil has been lifted, like something has been cleared, and I'm like, whoa, free space, okay. Wow, that felt really good. I didn't necessarily know that I was carrying that hurt, that I was still holding that wound within me. But literally, observing it, acknowledging it, addressing it, and then clearing it is what heals it. Like, truly, that is the recipe. So, I'm sure this resonates with you guys. If you are criers, please comment below. I applaud you, truly. Please keep crying. It is truly a superpower. And for those of you who it's a bit harder for you to cry, I would also love to hear your responses in the comments below as to why you feel that you don't cry that often, why it's been hard for you, and if you too are acknowledging that crying is a superpower and it literally helps you to process things and helps heal everything as a whole. I love you, being so grateful. Namaste.